myself with the different countries on the map. My favorite was Australia, which was painted the color of bubblegum. My 3 favorite animals were Australian: the koala, the kangaroo, and the platypus. What I liked most about koalas was how they hold on to trees. I would hug my pillow, just like a koala hugging a tree, until I'd fall asleep with the light still on. Perhaps it was because I was growing up that I dreamed of these horrific things. My friends at school all liked stories about ghosts and vampires. I didn't like them, but I kept having that terrible dream. One night, I woke up even more frightened than usual. I turned on the lights and looked at my hands, afraid they would be stained with blood. But they only bore the ink stains they'd had when I came home from school. I looked at the map, and before I could even imagine distant countries, I heard a sob. It came from the hallway and had my mother's unmistakable tone. This time, I dared to leave my room, and I walked barefoot to my parents' bedroom. Her grief was more important than my nightmare. They slept in separate beds. The curtains were open, and the moonlight entered the room and fell upon my father's bed, which was the one closest to the window. I've seen many beds since then, but none has affected me like this one did. My father wasn't there. Mama cried with her eyes closed. She didn't realize that I was in the room. I went to my father's bed, pulled back the covers, and got in. I breathed in a delicious scent of leather and lotion, and I fell asleep instantly. I never slept better than I did that night. The next day, she didn't like finding me asleep there. I told her that I had sleepwalked and ended up there without realizing it. "This is the last thing I need," Mama exclaimed. "A sleepwalking son." On the way to school, my sister, Carmen, made fun of me because I walked in my sleep. Then she asked me if I could teach her to sleepwalk. Carmen was 10 and believed everything I told her. I explained to her that I belonged to a secret club that met at night. We wandered the streets without waking up. "What is the club called?" Carmen asked me. "The Shadow Club," I answered, the name coming to me suddenly. "Can I join?" "First, you need to pass various tests. It's not so easy," I replied. Carmen asked me to wake her up one night to take her to the Shadow Club. I promised that I would, but naturally, I didn't. Worried that I was walking in my sleep, Mama spoke to her friend Ruth, who had lived in Germany during World War II and had witnessed things that were more hair-raising than a somnambulant child. When she spoke on the phone to Ruth, Mama was soothed by these stories of things that were worse than her own troubles. Our life wasn't perfect, but at least we weren't being bombarded. When I got back from school, Mama was talking on the phone with Ruth. However, once again, it smelled like mashed potatoes. Her friend's terrible stories hadn't managed to calm her down this time. I left my backpack in my room. I went to the bathroom and then washed my hands. The annoying ink stains were still there. I went into the kitchen, following that wonderful smell that always heralded problems. I stopped in the doorway and saw my mother crying in silence. Then I asked the question that I had been turning over and over in my head at school. "Where is Papa?" She looked at me through her tears. She smiled as if I were a landscape, lovely and ruined. "We need to talk," was her answer. But she didn't say anything else. She continued pounding the potatoes, then lit a cigarette, smoking haphazardly so the ash fell into the food. I remained standing there like a statue until she said, "Your father is going to live outside the house for a while. He's rented a studio. He has a lot of work, and we make too much noise. When he finishes all this work, he's going to Paris to build a bridge." Something made me think that my father would never return to that bed beneath the moonlight. Mama knelt down and hugged me. She'd never hugged me like this, kneeling on the floor. "Nothing will happen to you, Juanito," she told me. Every time she called me Juanito, something terrible happened. It wasn't an affectionate name, but a crisis name. The mashed potatoes of names.